Hello and welcome to Zoom at 8. Once again, we're here on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Everybody is welcome. My name is Julie Ann Peterson. I am your host tonight. I work for Old Capital Lending. As many of you guys know, we are a premier provider of debt for not only multifamily, but other asset classes. We are a relationship lender, so if you are looking for a sponsor or for limited partners or simply an insurance broker, let me know. I'm here to help you. At this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to push it over to Adam. Adam is, as I mentioned, very connected. He comes with his own people that support him, so that is truly amazing. So Adam Doran, this is what is amazing. He is a former police officer who turned wealth advisor who has been investing in real estate since 2011. What an amazing guy to take the time to get off of the beat to really help out in areas that, he wants to help people, whether as a police officer or in this area of finance. He started with wholesaling, then purchased his first rental property in 2012 using creative financing and the BRRRR method. Through a repeated application of this strategy, he accumulated 5 single-family homes in the Kansas City market. Later, he sold those properties and transitioned in 2019 to multifamily. Through apartment syndication, he now owns 52 units with his partners and plans to continue building wealth through multifamily real estate. In addition to his real estate investing, Adam works full-time in financial services. His specialty is helping real estate investors insulate themselves from raising or rising tax rates, market volatility, and lawsuits, while maximizing the use of every dollar. So I am thrilled to have Adam Doran. I met him probably 6 months ago. We had a great conversation, and the reason I felt it was necessary for you to meet up with Adam is because this may not be something that you're interested in. Maybe you don't want to use what Adam is providing, but really there may be an opportunity to have a discussion like this with your investors. And so now you have a new partner to provide value to your investors. So you're helping your investors, adding value to them. This happened to me, and I'm grateful for the sponsor that introduced me to some of my new partners. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to the one and only Adam Doran. How are you, Adam?
Hi, Julie. I'm doing great. Thank you. That was a really, really strong introduction, and I'm very appreciative of it. So thank you. And
absolutely.
Thanks, everybody, for investing your time to be here tonight. I promise I'll make it worth your while. Also, I'm cognizant we've got the debate later tonight, and maybe some of you want to see that. So I'm going to be conscious of time as I move forward.
Thank you.
Do I have the ability to share my screen?
You should have it.
Okay,
Can you
looks
check
like
that?
I am. Yep.
Okay.
Is everybody able to see that? And then I'll go into presentation mode. Can I just see some head nods?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So guys, I promise you we'll make it worth your time tonight, and I'll share some really good stuff. If you are one of those that's going to have to leave early tonight for any special reason, try to hang in with me till at least slide 8, because if you walk away with nothing else, you'll want the information that's on there. And so this would be slide 1, but I'll move quickly through it. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is, while you're building your real estate portfolio, what if at the same time we can implement a capital strategy that creates a growing liquidity position with no downside risk, that insulates us from tax rates, insulates us from inflation, creditors, lawsuits, and market volatility. That's really the goal. And just like Julie said, maybe this is interesting to you, but even if it's not, I promise you it's interesting to your passive investors, because what they're looking at is basically a stable, predictable capital platform where they know in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, exactly where they're going to be and what they're going to have to deploy. And so there's value in that. So I'll just jump right in with, first of all, I really like to ask what if questions and why questions. I like to get myself to think because I really think when it comes to real estate investing or any kind of wealth building, it's all about strategy and being thoughtful about the strategy. So why are we even in real estate to begin with? And I think the answer for all of us here is we're working towards both financial freedom. I think that's maybe the immediate short-term thought, but also when you think a little deeper into it, it's really the time freedom, right? That's what we're all after. We want to create that cash flow that allows us to cover the bills and be able to do what we want, when we want, with who we want. I know you've heard that in the seminars before, but really that's what it's all about. And so I let that thought kind of guide the strategies moving forward. And I try to have a big picture view and a long-term view. So I think it's also really important when it comes to investing, hopefully you guys agree with this, it's not so much what you already know. It's not so much about the experience you already have. It's about the blind spots. What are the questions we didn't think to ask, the scenarios we didn't think to cover and to mitigate? And if you talk to any CEO, high-earning professional, somebody who's super successful, they'll always tell you the most valuable lessons are the stuff they didn't see coming, the blind spots. But I want to help you try to navigate some of those, because when we talk capital strategy, I think it's important to ask these 3 questions. And so the first one is, currently when you're looking at your current capital strategy, are you protected against market risk? Are you protected against the downside on your capital account? And are you protected from rising tax rates? Because either one of those, you take a hit on a market portfolio or tax rates go up significantly on you, either one of those can significantly change the game plan. So are you protected against those 2 risks? The second question is, based on what I'm currently doing and what most people do as far as financing deals, what's the cost of interrupting the growth of my capital account? Every time I drain the account to go do a deal, what's the cost of that? And then finally, and this is something I see with all business owners, real estate or otherwise, is your personal wealth concentrated within your business? And I know probably without asking anyone, because by nature, business owners, that's what we do. We focus on what we're really good at. That's great. It's good to have your one thing. But if all your personal wealth is concentrated within your business, so is your risk. And if anything occurs in your business that you weren't ready for, that you didn't plan for, that causes you to take a hit, it can have a domino effect on every other area of your life. And so we want to kind of mitigate that risk as well. So tonight's objectives is I'm going to address all 3 of these. We're going to go over a capital strategy that will allow us to insulate our capital from market risk and rising taxes. We're going to show you how you can enjoy uninterrupted growth of capital. And we're going to show you how to accelerate the wealth creation process by being able to deploy the same dollar in 2 places at the same time and grow multiple assets. So first off, let's take a look at what we're probably already doing currently. Where do you currently put cash? And from a tax perspective, I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at this tonight from a tax perspective, because I think those are such a huge expense and can be a huge eroding factor on your wealth. From a tax perspective, there's 3 types of accounts. The first one's taxable. This is probably where, if I was going to bet where most of you are keeping capital, and this is where I was keeping capital, is it's either in checking, savings, or a brokerage account. That's probably where I'm warehousing cash. And the reason being, not because I'm excited about paying taxes on any gains in the account, but because those accounts are liquid. And that's a key, is liquidity. As a real estate investor, being able to write the check when the deal comes up. So most of us, this is probably where we're warehousing cash. The thing is, from a financial planning standpoint, anything above and beyond an emergency savings account, if we're stuffing it in this bucket, we're paying unnecessary taxes that we don't have to pay. And more than likely, we don't have a lot of asset protections in place. The next type of accounts, tax-deferred accounts. This is all your traditional retirement accounts, all the number and letter soup of different types of accounts that are out there, and where the majority of Americans and traditional financial planning is having people, encouraging people to build their nest egg. And what's nice about that is today, if you make a lot of money this year, and let's just say, I don't know, you made $200,000 this year, and you were able to dump, 10 of it or 20 of it into a tax deferred category, you now are going to pay taxes on $10,000 to $20,000 less of income. So there's an advantage today. Unfortunately, the disadvantage is we grow and compound that wealth. It becomes, however big the account becomes, $1 million, $2 million. When you get to retirement, now there's a tax bill due. And so that's the backside of this type of account. So here's what's interesting. And it doesn't matter whether you're a real estate investor or any other kind of business owner. I find when I meet with folks in my office that 80% or more of everything they've built is in these first two buckets. And when I look at where tax rates are, historically speaking, Our tax rates have been as high as 94%, was the highest tax bracket in American history. That was back in the 1940s after World War II. It's how we funded World War II. Obviously, our highest current tax bracket right now is 37%. So when you compare that to the 94%, and when you look at the headlines in the media today, what do you think the probability is that taxes remain at historic lows where they are today? And do you think they're headed up or do you think they're headed down? And if you're like me and you think tax rates are headed up, do I really want to have 80% of everything I'm worth in these first two buckets? Probably not. So then begs the question, okay, well, what's my option as far as tax-free? And there's really two, the most significant options I can think of for you. There's a couple others, but if we're going to build any real wealth, there's really two options for us. Whenever I'm in a room full of people and I ask, hey, what's a tax-free option? Usually the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth is a Roth IRA, which is absolutely true. And Roths are wonderful because there's three key advantages. You can, once you paid the taxes on the money and put it in the Roth, you can grow that money tax-free. It can get as big as the account gets, and there's no tax burden. You'll be able to take tax-free income in retirement. And because it is a retirement account, there are going to be some built-in asset protections from creditors. So that's great. The Roth also comes with some limitations, unfortunately. And that is, if you want to make that account grow, if you want to make it a productive cash account, you've got to subject the money in the account to downside risk. You got to take some risk to grow it. Also, you can actually make too much money to do a Roth. If you don't make too much money to do a Roth, it may still not move the needle. If you're restricted to putting $6,000 a year into this, but you've got more than $6,000 to put away, what are your other options for tax-free? And then, of course, there are withdrawal restrictions up to age 59 and a half, and the IRS does know about every dollar that's in this account. So the second option that I'm going to spend the balance of our time talking about tonight is cash value life insurance. And what's nice about cash value life insurance is it comes with the same advantages that the Roth has, none of the limitations though. So if you have to step out early tonight, the last two slides that I covered, this is probably the most meaningful for you, is the one I showed you about tax concentration of wealth and where we're at right here. Two big takeaways for you. Where do I sit when I think about tax rates? How am I allocated between taxable, tax deferred, and tax-free? And what are my options if I don't like that allocation and I want to get more money into tax-free? And here's your options. So let's spend the balance of our time tonight talking about the cash value life insurance piece, because this is what I personally use for my own capital strategy. And it's the one that I think is the most misunderstood in the popular media with financial gurus. So I'm going to explain some things to you tonight that hopefully really expand your understanding on this. I'm going to try to keep it high level and not get in the weeds. And then, at the end, if there's some questions, we'll take them if we've got time. If it's an in the weeds question, I'm more than happy, aside from tonight, to answer via email, text, whatever. So it really hinges on how you structure this. Because when it comes to cash value life insurance, it can either be primarily an insurance vehicle or it can be set up as a tax-free asset. And the two are not the same. There actually is a minimum amount and a maximum amount you can pay for a given amount of life insurance coverage. So if you would come into Insurance Shop ABC and say, I want to buy $1 million whole life insurance policy, which is a permanent policy that accumulates cash value, there's a minimum and a maximum amount that you can pay to get that $1 million policy. The insurance agent is likely to quote you, right? We talk about insurance quotes, the minimum, because that's set by the insurance company with the intention of being, competitive in the marketplace. So company A, company B, company C, they may all have different rates, but they're all shooting to have the lowest number. That policy is going to be optimized for death benefit, buying the most amount of death benefit with the least amount of dollars. We're going to flip that model on its head tonight. We're not so concerned about the death benefit piece. It's nice that it's there. It comes along for the ride, but I'm interested in building a tax-free asset that's going to have liquidity and cash for me to use to deploy into my real estate investing. So I would be more interested in what's the maximum amount I can pay for that $1 million policy, because I'm trying to get as little death benefit as I can and get as much cash accumulation as I can. We're flipping the model on its head. What's interesting is the insurance company doesn't determine that maximum number, the IRS does. And the reason the IRS has any interest in how much you pay for a life insurance policy is because the IRS knows that through the tax code, life insurance comes with some incredible advantages as an asset class. And so they put a limit on it called a MEC, a modified endowment contract. And so with a traditional life insurance policy, this is where structure is key. You walk into the insurance shop, you say, I want $1 million death benefit. The agent's going to optimize that policy to that death benefit, getting you the lowest dollar cost for the death benefit coverage. So you're going to put the least amount of dollars in, get the most amount of death benefit. And those dollars over here, cash value, don't come anywhere near that maximum that the IRS allows. But when we structure this as an asset class, and we come in saying, I want to get as much cash value in this thing as I can for the least amount of death benefit possible, we simply ride that cash value all the way up to the MEC line as much as the IRS will allow us to fund the policy while purchasing the least amount of death benefit possible. So structuring this is key to get the desired effect. Most insurance agents don't even understand what I just shared with you. So now with what you know more than probably 90% of the insurance agent field. This is an advanced wealth strategy. So let's talk about a couple examples, because you're hearing from me. I'm a life insurance expert. Yes, I'm a real estate investor, but I'm the life insurance guy that's supposed to tell you good things. So let's talk about some real life examples of people that actually use this strategy. I'm going to start with historical examples and move to current day. So Walt Disney in 1955 had an idea for this cool theme park he wanted to do. It was a crazy idea. No banks would finance him. So he got together with some partners and took a loan from his whole life insurance policy to fund the startup of Disneyland. We wouldn't have Disneyland today if he hadn't had a robust whole life policy. Doris Christopher, you might not know her name, but you'll know her company brand. In 1980, from her house in Chicago, decided to start a little cooking utensils business, which she, by the way, started with a life insurance loan from her husband's life insurance policy, and then sold that just a few years ago for several hundreds of millions of dollars to Berkshire Hathaway, and that company was the Pampered Chef. Joe Biden, thought I'd bring this up. It's timely because he's going to be in a debate. We'll see him on TV tonight. This is his Office of Governmental Accountability Financial Disclosure from 2011. And under the assets and income column, he lists 6 whole life insurance policies as assets and income. Not under expenses, assets and income. And then for those of you who are a sports follower, Jim Harbaugh, a significant part of his compensation agreement with the University of Michigan for coaching there comes in the form of what's called a split dollar life insurance plan. And essentially what it does is allows him to build a tax-free retirement and a tax-free legacy for his family, and it's completely off the IRS radar screen. And then finally, large banks are the biggest purchasers of whole life insurance in America. They use it for what they call tier 1 capital. And essentially, not only is it good capital for them to have on the books, but it makes a fantastic executive benefits plan for their high-paid executives because it is totally discriminatory. Unlike traditional retirement plans that fall under ERISA regulation, where if you give it to one employee, you got to give it to all, banks can selectively decide the benefits they want to extend, who they want to give them to, and the amounts they want to do it in. And life insurance makes a great vehicle for that executive benefit structure. So these are some real life examples. And when I was studying this strategy for myself back in 2011, it was these examples that stood out to me that said, if these people are interested in this, I probably should be myself. And that's why I decided to get educated on it, not knowing at that time that I would actually get into this industry and teach real estate investors how to use this strategy in their real estate investing. So let's bring it home to how we could use this. People that are on this call tonight, or your passive investors, if this isn't interesting to you. So this is a case study of an actual client that I've worked with. This isn't necessarily your scenario, your numbers. So please don't get wrapped up in those details. I just want to give you an example so you can conceptually understand how this asset can work. And a big piece of this is we never use new money. We never create a new expense in your life. So it's going to be whatever your existing financial plan is, however your existing structure works, whether you have current assets that you've accumulated in different types of accounts, or you have current contributions that you're making monthly towards your financial strategy. We're going to go with what you're currently doing and simply look at, does it make sense to make adjustments and start allocating into this asset class? So we never want to create a new expense. So for this 40-year-old female real estate investor client of mine, she was already committing $2,000 a month towards the future. She was already allocating that amount towards being able to do her real estate investing. And we simply looked at this strategy and said, hey, would it make sense to use this as a capital platform. And so she's going to fund this at that $2,000 a month that she's already doing over a 25-year period from age 40 to 65. And it's going to create a capital account that grows like this for her. Your numbers probably look different. Your situation probably is different. Again, just conceptually explaining how this could work. So she has a capital account that grows predictably and it's stable and there's no downside risk. So think about this from a planning standpoint for your investors who want to plug into deals. They want to do 1 deal a year, 3 deals a year, whatever it is. They can project out and say, okay, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, here's how my balance sheet looks. This is what I'll be positioned to do. And so obviously the goal here isn't just to build this capital account. The goal is to build some assets, a real estate portfolio. So how do we do that? Well, in this example, what I showed this client was, let's look at 3 deployments of capital during your working years over the life of this asset as you're funding it. Let's see what it looks like as we build a real estate portfolio. So at age 45, you've got, a little over 82,000 in there, almost 83,000. Let's say you deploy out 50,000 as a down payment on a deal. Maybe it's a single family deal. And then as that property cash flows, or if you exit it in a few years, do a fix and flip in a few months, you can return the $50,000 back to the capital account. And then a few years later, say at age 50, you deploy 100 grand, and maybe that's on a smaller multifamily like a fourplex. And again, as the property cash flows, or maybe now you do a refinance after you get it seasoned with rents, you can return the capital back to the account. And then let's say, age 55, you deploy $250,000, and this time it's an apartment syndication, like what those of us on the call here are doing. And again, you allow that property as it cash flows or as it returns your initial investment to you, you can put it back in the capital account. Whether you contributed the money to age 65 and just let this thing bake, or whether you deploy $400,000 in capital, as I've illustrated here, there's no opportunity cost, because guess what? At age 65, you still have the same $932,000 in that account that you would have had if you just let the money bake. So just think about what I said for a second, because if this is a traditional savings account or a brokerage account or any other cash account that I can imagine, anytime you deploy money, so in this case, we took out $400,000 in 3 different transactions. Anytime you do that, you lose the opportunity to continue earning interest and compounding returns in the account. And what I'm telling her and what I'm telling you is, with this account, because of the nature of the asset and the contractual upside that is built into an insurance policy, you never stop the interrupting compounding growth. And so at age 65, you've still got the same $932,000, versus if you'd done this with a savings account or any other traditional cash account, you're going to bring that number down anytime you deploy capital for a period of time. Is everybody with me on what I just covered? Because that's a significant principle behind why this can be a smart capital strategy. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out. We're already going to build the real estate portfolio. We know that. That's why everybody's on the call tonight. But what if in addition to that, now we've got this separate asset that is totally uncorrelated with contractual upside? This is in addition to the assets we've purchased along the way. Oh, and by the way, this account's available for tax-free income in retirement. So now, yes, I've got my cash flowing properties. Hopefully I designed those to provide me some income, but I've also got this other account. And the other thing that this account comes with is a death benefit attached to it. So if any way along the line, something bad happens to me, maybe at age 55, I don't just have the $394,000, I have whatever the death benefit is, which is going to be significantly more than that. So it just kind of mitigates some of those unknowns and some of those risks that a lot of us don't think about, but that do matter to our family, charities, to our legacy. So I just want to point that piece out as well. So let's look at the retirement.
I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
We've got 2. What is the max you can deposit per year? And are there any health limitations?
Okay. The first prong to that question, what's the max? That's kind of an in the weeds question, but I will tell you, more than likely, you'll be able to put as much in as you want to. More than likely. That's the short version. There's a more in the weeds answer. Health. Is health an issue? Yes. Because health and age determine insurance pricing, and we need the pricing to be low and favorable to make this work. Now, if you're on here and you're thinking, well, that's great, I don't have good health, or I think I'm probably too old to get decent rates, we do have ways to work around that. And usually the way we work around that is there's usually a younger business partner, younger, healthier family member, somebody in which you have an insurable interest who we can build the asset with, but then you can have the ownership and the control of the asset. So that's how we get around that. Those are good questions. And Julie, I'm sorry, I know there's people coming in on the chat, and I'm not watching that just because I want to breeze through this, and then we can get to questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's look at retirement income picture on this example, just so you guys can see what that looks like. I know that, again, the primary goal is a capital strategy for real estate, but let's look at what this can add to this young lady's life in her retirement. So from age 40 to 65, she contributed $600,000 to this account. At age 71, if she would just hit the on button and take a pension style income till age 90, and we're assuming a death at age 90, she would be able to take a little over $85,000 per year as tax-free income from this asset. And what's interesting about that is because it's tax-free, it is a true $85,000 a year that she realizes. To get that same amount in her bank account out of a 401k or any other traditional retirement account that you haven't paid taxes on yet, she'd need to withdraw almost $113,000 a year. And that's making an assumption of a 24% tax bracket. You can change the assumptions, but the bottom line is when it's tax-free, it's real money, versus when it's not tax-free, however much you get to keep is going to be determined by the tax rate of the day. So assuming she kicks the bucket at age 90, she still leaves a legacy behind of just under $1 million, which is also tax-free, either to her family, charity, whatever beneficiary she selected. So when you look at the math of money in versus money out, and yes, I know inflation causes our dollars to go down in value over the years, so we need to allow for that, but we've put $600,000 into this asset. We've been able to take over $1.6 million tax-free and leave another almost $1 million to our family or for our legacy tax-free. So as a capital strategy and as a stable asset, I feel like this is at least worth taking a look at. So I thought what would be good too is comparing what I just illustrated for you to a traditional savings account. And I went online, and this was a few months back now that I went online, but I tried to find the highest high interest rate savings account I could that looked like it was legit. So there's probably some out there that claim 2.5%, and maybe they're legit, but the best one that I could find that seemed like it was reputable was 1.6%. So if we did that same thing that this client example I gave you did, and we put $2,000 a month from age 40 to 65, which would be $600,000, into that 1.6% savings account, by age 65, we'd have about $782,000 in there. And then if we just started pulling money off the top of that at age 71 to 90, like I did with the policy, it's going to result in a net retirement income of about $665,000. And the reason that number is lower than the number you started with is because I'm allowing for the fact they're probably also going to draw from this account to cover their tax bill, which is going to be higher because they're not having any tax-free assets that they're drawing from. So that's where I drew those numbers. So when we look at that versus having a tax-free capital account, obviously you didn't accumulate as much. Also, you weren't able to take near as much retirement income. So I'm going to go back to my blind spot questions. When I asked at the very beginning, what's the cost of interrupting the compounding growth of your capital? And what's the cost of not insulating yourself from taxes? There's the cost. And then when we look at the difference in retirement income, it's pretty astounding. Essentially, the opportunity cost is a little over $1 million when you do your capital strategy the traditional way. So I wanted to at least give you guys a conceptual picture of just how significant this is when you think long-term capital strategy. So last question for you, what could you be building? You're already going to do the real estate. Would implementing a strategy like this enhance what you're already going to be doing? So just to recap, I said tonight we were going to go over insulating your capital from market risk and rising tax rates. We covered that. We covered how the capital grows uninterrupted because of the contractual nature of the policy. And we covered how we can basically grow the same dollars in two different places at the same time, both growing the real estate portfolio when we deploy capital and continuing to grow and compound in the insurance policy. So a couple questions for reflection for you guys. And I would say just, go through this and think on this. Am I currently, with what I'm doing with my capital account, insulated from market risk and rising taxes in the current capital strategy model that I have? What could I accomplish if I had a capital strategy that allows me to grow the money uninterrupted? And does the current capital strategy I'm using allow me to build multiple assets simultaneously? Can I grow that dollar and put it to work in two places at the same time? So that's the summary of what I've got to share with you guys. There's my contact information up. I'm going to stop the screen share. I can also plug it into chat. I think that might be better for you. So let me do that real quick. And then I'm happy to take a couple questions. Julie, I'll let you kind of decide on how long we want to go with that.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. Can you use your solo 401k to buy the insurance on a party that
That's
you have a beneficial interest?
Really, really good question. So there are actually Bob Van Cleve's on here. I know Bob, and he might be even more informed on this than me, but I know for sure there are 3 specific things you cannot invest in with your retirement account. Those are antiques, collectibles, and life insurance. So if the money is within a retirement account, you cannot purchase the policy within that retirement account. What you can do is, if you feel like you are over-concentrated in a tax-deferred category and you would like to shift some of your existing tax-deferred assets and transition them into a tax-free account, you can move the money over. There are several different ways to accomplish that. That's an in-the-weeds discussion, which I'm happy to have offline, but it is possible. It is legal and ethical.
So instead of paying $2,000 a month, can a person pay a lump sum?
Yes and no. The yes part is, when you structure these, the IRS will allow you within limits to put in a lump sum in year 1. However, with the MEC rule the way that it is, if you would only put in a lump sum in year 1 and you would not continue to phase money into that over a period of time that needs to be at least 7 years, then the policy contract is going to MEC every time. And what that basically means is you'll lose all the tax advantages. So essentially, if this is a strategy you want to explore doing for yourself, you need to have a timeline of funding of at least 7 years and preferably at least 10 years. However, when people really begin to understand how this asset works, you begin to think, well, why would I want to stop putting money in after 10 years? I would want to have this shelter available for the rest of my life. But if you want to keep it to as short a time frame as possible, then it's going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 years.
So if you are 60 years old, what is the best way to implement this strategy?
Yep. So quite honestly, it may not be a fit. And the only way to know if it is to explore that, get a little more in the details of, is there anyone in your life that you have an insurable interest in where we could build the asset on that individual, where you would maintain ownership and control over it? And is that somebody you would eventually want to transfer that asset to, either upon your death or beforehand? So maybe.
Okay, good information. Does anybody else have any questions? This has been extremely informative. I'll take, yeah, is that Patrick? Did you have a question?
I was just giving him a thumbs up on the
Gotcha.
informative. Yeah, great information, fascinating.
Can you purchase life insurance for your children, for those in the 55 plus, then you have control of it?
If I'm understanding the question right, the answer is yes. If you're saying I'm 55 plus, I have children, and I'd like to purchase this for them and they'd be the insured, but I'll own the asset, the answer is yes.
Gotcha, that's a great vehicle. That's it for me, you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Bye.